Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Lenny Wood is the director of his own company, Marketing Outsource. He started his business during the pandemic, and Lenny says that without networking, he would have struggled to get it off the ground. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Lenny.
Thanks, Liz. It's great to be here.
Now, you've worked in marketing for a number of years now, but looking at your LinkedIn profile, you started out in retail. So tell me about the years that you spent at Wilko.
Oh, certainly, yeah. So that was my first ever job straight out of college. And basically, I went to, obviously did school, did college, but didn't really fancy going to university because of the age I am. I actually had the choice to go to university for, not for free, but for very little money.
Yeah.
But my social group didn't really, not many of them were going to university. So basically, I just did what a lot of people my age did at that time, which was just look for a job. And the jobs that were around at the time were mostly retail.
Yeah.
Obviously, things have changed quite a lot now. But what it did do though was, which I obviously didn't know at the time, was it actually taught me an awful lot of basic skills that I use to this day. One of the biggest ones being confidence. So I wasn't a very confident teenager, but spending time in retail at Wilko's basically completely changed me as a person.
Yeah. And so how long did you stay there?
Oh, I was there for at least about 7 years, I think. And I started as a 4-hour a night filler.
Yeah.
And then when I left the company, I'd gone through the management program and I was the assistant manager of the Harlow store.
Fantastic. So how did you feel then a few months ago when Wilko's went under?
Oh, such a shame. Well, I still know people as well. Like my immediate friend group, there's still 4 or 5 people that I've known since those days. And we were all the same, it was a real shame because it was kind of like the end of a era almost in our life. I know the brand has sort of carried on, it's been bought as a name and it carries on online, but it's not quite the same. No,
it isn't. So what was it that drew you towards marketing then?
Well, it's an interesting kind of story really. So like did the 7 years in retail, and then there was a Christmas when I was working, because obviously retail, Christmas, most important time of the year.
Yeah.
And there was a time where I was standing on a ladder in the shop, hanging point of sale for the January sale on Christmas Eve. And I watched as people walked past the shop who were going out, people my age, and I was like, I think I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I wanted my weekends back, and I wanted my special times of the year back. So I left that job, and then I did temping for a very short time, where I was able to try out a whole bunch of different jobs, and I wanted to get into a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And so I tried a whole bunch of office-related jobs. And strangely enough, it was a job that wasn't even an office job that got me into it. So there was a job for 2 weeks for a warehouse person. And that was it. So I took that job, and 2 weeks become 4 weeks, become 4 months. And I got to know everybody, and I endeared myself to the graphic design team that were there. And so when somebody left, I applied and got the job to be a trainee graphic designer, basically.
Wow.
So I did that for about 2 years, and then I just transitioned across to marketing in that company, and then that's sort of how I got into it.
Yeah. And so where did you go from there? Because you worked for a few companies, I think, doing marketing.
Yes. So that was how I sort of segued into it in the first place. And then I thought, well, I've got lots of experience now in marketing, in graphic design, and in management from the Wilko's job. So I put it all together, and then I just applied for jobs as a marketing manager. And so then I moved on to another job where I started my marketing management career. And then I did that for 15 years, I think, something like that, on or off. And then that brought us all the way up to where we are now, pretty much.
And so what is it about marketing that particularly appeals to you?
Well, It's interesting because at the time, I mean, as you can tell from what I've just said, is that I was still trying to find my feet and I didn't really know what it was that I actually wanted to do still. So when I just took the opportunities that came my way, and it just so happened that marketing was where I landed, and I just really enjoyed the combination of, you know, statistics, planning, strategy, in some cases graphic design. All it's just such a multifaceted discipline
Yeah.
that it keeps me interested. So
Yeah.
I mean, this whether or not you believe in star signs or anything like that, I'm a Gemini and I get really bored really easily. So actually, marketing's pretty cool for me because it is a constant challenge and it's
Yeah.
always different. So
Yeah.
so that's probably what drew me to it.
And what was it that made you decide to become self-employed?
So that's a much easier journey. So that was COVID. So
Right.
yeah, so I was working for an international Swiss email security company at the time, and they, like a lot of corporates, sort of panicked a little bit in COVID and furloughed 80% of the global workforce.
Yeah.
And so that put me in a position where I needed to really sort of think on my feet. So the first thing I did was I talked to my recruitment contacts on LinkedIn to find that 9 out of 10 of them were furloughed as well.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a great start. so I thought, well, it's either sit here, complete Netflix, or maybe take my skills and experience and try and build a company out of COVID. And then what really finally pushed me over the edge was I had a chat with my boss and he said, we've got to furlough this many people, but you run the marketing and I've still got a business to run. So I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So there must be loads of people in that position.
Yeah.
And there was. So that's what allowed me to build the business from day one to basically get through COVID and then and move it on from there.
Yeah. So how did you find it being self-employed, having been an employee for such a long time?
Well, I think I was really fortunate, which is that because I was able to build the company whilst being on furlough, somebody was paying me to do it. So I think the thing that most people have to face down if they want to start up a business for themselves is that they go to bed on Friday night with a salary and they wake up on Monday morning with no money.
Yeah.
So that, I didn't have to face that as such, really. I was facing it, but I was facing it in 8 months ahead of when it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I was a bit fortunate from that point of view. And I had some savings as well. So all of that put together just kind of made it a little bit easier to get going.
Yeah. So who are your clients? What kind of sectors are they from and what sort of size businesses are you working with?
Well, this is the fun part, you see, because marketing is so broad that I spend a lot of my time telling people to have a niche, and it's very important to have a niche, and it makes messaging easier, and your message will resonate better with the people that you want to target. However, my niche is that I don't have a niche, so basically, my current client base is a very widespread of SMEs to European corporates in all sectors. So there's no one sector that I concentrate on, and there's no one size business that fits what I do either.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the things that you do for your clients.
Yeah, so basically when I first started out, basically I had an awful lot of skills because I'd managed several teams in the past. I'm always made it my mission to kind of learn what they all did, because I think there's a lot of managers out there who manage a team without necessarily knowing what they do. So I made sure that I knew what they did, which meant that when I started a business, I could just take all of that experience and then I just threw everything at the wall to see what people wanted and what I like to do. And over the last 3 years, I've chiseled that down, and I've kind of chiseled it into 4 offerings that I think resonate with people when they're looking for things, and that's web, search, social, and video. And so it's everything from web design and hosting all the way through search engine optimization to LinkedIn account management and video production. So all things that cross over with one another and things that can help you build a strategy to generate inquiries.
Yeah. Now, that's a lot of things. Do you do them all?
No, I certainly do not. So I did originally. So when I first set up, obviously it was just me, so I had to make it work, and I did an awful lot of it myself. But at the end of my second year, I decided that I'd grown it as far as I could grow it with me.
Yeah.
So I then engaged with a lot of freelancers who I've now worked with, and I know that they're very good at what they do. And so I find the work, and we all work together to deliver the projects.
Yeah.
And that works really well for me because it frees up my time to do more of the actual growing of the business. And it works really well for the client because they are getting the best people in their field to provide to deliver their projects.
Yeah. Yeah. And presumably it doesn't matter where these people are based.
No, not at all. No, I can work with anyone anywhere. Obviously, it helps if they're in the UK because of time zones,
Yeah.
but it honestly doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what is it that you would say is different about your approach to marketing from other marketing agencies?
Well, I think it's because it's all under one roof. So I've picked. It's taken me 3 years to find the things that people genuinely seem to need. And so what you've got now is you've got a very curated suite of products and services that provide the best outcomes. Now, coupled with that, is the fact that we don't have any kind of long contracts. So like with your traditional kind of marketing agency will usually tie people in for a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
be it 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. But what we do is basically work month to month. So it's just 1 month rolling contract, which means that from the client's point of view, they don't have to overcommit. But
Yeah.
from my point of view, it keeps me on my toes to make sure that we're providing the best outcomes every single month.
Yeah. And what kind of results have your clients been seeing?
Well, it depends on what the actual service is. So because there's quite a diverse number of services there, they're not all KPI driven, if you see what I mean. So like a well-designed website doesn't really have a KPI outcome other
Yeah.
than, it looks good and it works. Hosting and maintenance is, the best feedback for that is that their website is always working 24/7. There are a few services like search engine optimization that are very much results driven, and the feedback from those services have been very good. In fact, this year coming, we're going to be expanding on the search engine optimization service because it's been so good for so many people.
Yeah, I can imagine lots of people are interested in that because it's a bit of a dark art, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And as I say, from my experience, I've actually done it hands-on. Obviously, I now don't want to do it myself, but the good thing is when I work with somebody, I know exactly what is required.
Yeah.
So so that makes sure that we're providing the right kind of service, and then you see, it's reflected in the results anyway. So.
Yeah. Let's have a little chat about networking now then. Was networking something you ever did on behalf of your employers in the past?
Yeah, not really. So we would be members of the London Chamber of Commerce and then a couple of the local regional chambers as well. And networking would extend as far as kind of going maybe once a month to an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
And that would be it, really. There would be or maybe going to a show, an exhibition every now and then, and that would be the sort of the limit of it, really.
Yeah.
But when I moved into self-employment, I realised that it was all on me to find my customers.
Yes.
So then networking became hugely important from the get-go, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
In my case, I was again a little bit fortunate that I built up a really good LinkedIn community, so I was able to dip into that to get some clients like almost overnight, really.
Yeah.
But I've quickly realised I'd need to come up with a system by which I could get more people, and again maybe I would say the the part that I did correctly, which is I went out there and looked for online networking groups.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic at the
Yes,
time,
yeah.
and there was an awful lot of them were springing up, and they were transitioning. They were traditional in-person meetings that had gone online. So
Yeah.
that was brilliant. And then through that, I could see that I could meet an awful lot of people in a very short space of time. I then realised that I had some skills on LinkedIn. I took some courses to get a little bit better at it, and then I fashioned a funnel. I hate the word funnel, but it is a funnel. It's a funnel, and which was go to networking, meet as many people as possible, arrange a one-to-one. I'm not selling at this point at all. I'm only genuinely interested in what the other person does.
Yeah.
At that point, I would ask to add them to my LinkedIn connections, and then I would just provide value. So all my posts are value related.
Yeah.
And then I always say to people that if you're on LinkedIn and you want extra reach, tag me in, and I'll always engage, share, like, etc. And just by doing that, it's created a really fantastic referral network. So now about 85% of my work comes from LinkedIn now.
Brilliant. And so what kind of networking are you doing these days now that we have gone more back to face-to-face as well as online?
Yeah, well, from networking point of view, I'm still doing online because it's just way more efficient to do that. You can do more of those in a day than you could ever do going somewhere. But now that people are allowed to talk to each other again, I do find myself going to more large events. So like the business show, business expo, things like that, where you're going to be in the same room as hundreds of businesses, thousands in some cases, and that's a very efficient way to do it in person.
Yes.
And the way that I approach that is I go there, I meet the people, I go to the stands of the companies that I'm interested in talking to, and then I will go and sit myself in the coffee area, and then anyone who sits at my table, I'll just start a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that works brilliantly.
Yeah. Have you tried having a stand yourself?
I haven't, but I've done a lot of exhibiting for companies I've worked for, and there's always a question of value for money because it's always a very large expense. It would be the largest expense my company would pay would invest in a whole 12-month period.
Yeah.
And without a guaranteed result, it makes it really hard to justify.
Yeah.
At the moment, I mean, once I grow the company bigger, then it would just become part of the marketing budget, and I would do it. But at the moment, it's much more cost effective for me to do online networking and then go to a large show and just meet people in general. Generally just meet people.
Yeah. And is there a particular kind of networking that you enjoy going to the most?
You mean like format?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna name drop one now.
That's all right.
Which is the Creative Collective.
Yeah.
And that is run by two chaps, Martin and Ben, and they have come up with a format which is fresh.
Yeah.
On a regular basis, and they have first of all, they have an incredibly large following, so they'll have anywhere between 40 and 50 people per meeting. Every meeting, it's a fortnightly meeting, and they just do some really fun stuff, and they have breakout rooms. They give everybody plenty of time to talk to the whole room. They have the occasional games and things like that, and it's just a good fun group. And because it's niched, it's for creatives, so you get lots of like-minded people. So it's just a really good format. Yeah,
and people who've got similar audiences. We're all sort of looking for the same kinds of people, aren't we?
Yeah, well, they use a phrase which is collaboration, not competition.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it's not weird. It's great, but when I first started networking, there was a lot of traditional networking groups who would have lockouts where you would be the only person in that group that does the thing that you do.
Yeah.
Which, when I first started, I thought, well, that's good because then no one's going to be competing with me for any work. And then it wasn't until I did this network and I was like, well, actually, I'm getting more work from people that do the same thing as I do than I ever did from the lockout groups. Because there's so much work available out there, so many businesses and people that need help, that I find myself referring business that I can't because I don't have capacity,
Yeah.
or there's a particular skill I don't have,
Yeah.
or anything like that. And I'll be referring to people who technically on paper should be a competitor,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work out that way. It just works. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant way of finding work.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. So why would you encourage other small business owners to try networking if they haven't already?
Well, I mean, the best example I can give of why you should be doing it is because I think if I didn't do it at the beginning, I don't think my business would have got off the ground. Because I think when people think of marketing, they think of typical marketing approaches like email marketing and and SEO and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think at the very beginning, if you're either starting out or you're still a small business looking to grow, that there's no better way of finding or building relationships and finding clients than networking, one-to-one networking, whether it's online or in person.
Yeah. Absolutely. So just finally then, Lenny, where can people find you if they want to know more about you and what you do?
Well, so you can find me on my website, which is marketingoutsource.co.uk, or you can find me on LinkedIn by just putting my name in, Lenny Wood.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest, and the best of luck with everything for 2024.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.